Hello. I think we're live. Should be live. Yeah. Hey, hi. Hello, everybody. Um, let's see here. I think we're live. Cool. So yeah, how's it going? I did some techno stuff on yesterday, Saturday. Uh, had a lot of fun. We drove down to Providence, which was a decent drive, about an hour and a half, including stopping and picking up another performer. Uh, Yeah, it went well. May Day down in Providence. They do a whole bunch of synth stuff. And yesterday they did like a techno night, which was a lot of fun. Um, yeah. How's it going? How's everybody's weekend going? I'm using this mic. I think it sounds a bit better than using the overhead boom because the overhead boom just gets a lot of room noise. So if it sounds good in the chat, let me know. I would love to get some feedback, but I think it's sounding okay. Sounding. So the plan for the evening was to talk about the patch as I ripped apart. I am not one to hold patches sacred. I like to get rid of my patches. Well, not really get rid of them, but I'm too like I can't stay focused on one thing for too long. So it's time for it to go. It was fun for the techno. I have another show coming up in a couple weeks, which is probably going to be way more slower, mellow, melodic stuff. MV Dirty's message was redacted. What are you saying over there, buddy? What are you saying? Yeah, so let's see. I'll do a quick kind of music demo, but the real demo is the if you go watch my shakedown video, that was a great performance in my mind. Maybe you disagree, that's fine, but for me, I thought that was really good, and that gives a great overview of what the actual patch sounds like. It's a bit quiet. Okay, good to know. Yep. How about now? That should be better, I think. Let me double check. Yeah, it should be better. I think. Yeah. Anyway. So. Okay. If it's still quiet, let me know. If I can turn it up a bit more. Can boost the gain a bit. Okay. So the shakedown video is probably the best example of the patch. I'll do a little bit more on here. Just to kind of quickly give you a sampling. I'm not going to spend too much time, so go watch that if you guys want to hear it in like the full set of it. But as I'm ripping apart cables here, we'll talk about how everything is set up. So I'm gonna switch to that now, and then we'll go from there. Thanks. See you guys in a second. I'm gonna put the mic down while I demo the audio here. Bye. Cool. So that was the Spark Notes version of what was an hour-long set. Again, if you guys want to see the full, we'll call it the Golden Master version of that set, go check out the other video on my YouTube channel, which was streamed Friday night. That gives a much better full example. Like I said, it's an hour long. I personally, I enjoyed it to like zone out to. I just put it on in the background. I really, really am happy with how it turned out. Cool. So that is the patch, or at least the demo of the patch. So let's talk about how everything is set up and working. Let me turn my fan down really quick. 1 second. All right, there we go. Cool. Should be a little bit less fan noise in the background now. So we got this big old modular case. This is my current live case, and it's my current main case, mostly because I prefer building out systems of about this size and working with them. It's more fun for me. So the way I have it set up is kind of controls in the front, stuff I don't really want to be touching with during the performance in the middle, mostly just because it's kind of hard to get to. You can see by the cables. And then kind of voices, filters, stuff I want to be kind of tweaking by hand, but not kind of control stuff up at the top. So that's kind of roughly the case layout. We'll just do a kind of grid by grid rundown. Acid Rain, Maestro, and Constellation are the stars of the shows from a sequencing perspective. The Constellation in particular is doing all of the triggering for all of the voices and all of the drums, with the exception of the stuff on the Bitbox, which I'll talk about in a minute. It is a really powerful Euclidean super sequencer. I've been having a lot of fun with it. It just came out recently. I was asked probably about 3 or 4 times last night what sequencer I was using, because it was a lot of other modular people at the show. The Acid Rain Maestro. Very fun for performing live. Lots of cool live features. What I kind of did was build out a couple basic patterns, and then was just kind of manipulating them on the fly as I was messing around. The mute function is really handy to do builds and drops and stuff like that. You can drop out drum voices really quickly and do a lot of fun stuff that way. Yeah. So kick on 1, claps, snare, hat. This was like a ride cymbal. And then I have the BIA doing percussion stuff, the Manus Territas, and the Erica Synth bass line, which was kind of that main acidy bass voice. Acidy bass voice. Performance mixer, doing all the mixing. The Axis I was not using at all, and I have the Catalyst, which is providing some just kind of additional modulation. The Catalyst is pretty cool because you can actually, 1, it's got a whole bunch of presets you can choose from. 2, you can actually quickly record and have it just loop. If you guys can see that, the light's going, which is really handy for performing live, because I can, it's another hand doing all sorts of stuff, and you can do it beat sync too, right? So you can do like 1 2 3 4 1 2 3 4, and it'll keep time, and it's just based off the time the recording works, but it works really well. In the middle, which will be kind of hard to see, so we have Pam's acting as both the main clock and the pitch sequencer for the pitch voices, which I'll talk about that patch in a minute here, because that's pretty special in my opinion. And then it is also providing a bunch of modulation to the BIA in a similar fashion to how it's being used for the pitch voice. And then we have our drum modules, the WMD series, Fracture, Crater, Chimera, Crucible, and Crater. Fracture, Kraken, Chimera, Crucible, Crater. So all 5 of the WMD drum modules, all doing their respective things. Crater on kick. The Crater, let me see if I can just play this. The Crater has a really nice boomy kick. You turn up the decay. And you can turn down the decay too if you want something a little bit Spartan, but. So that's the Crater. This is our kind of clap noise with the fracture. And I was doing a little bit of modulation on the fracture with the maestro as well. So together we got, you know, your standard clap on 2 and 4, very nice. The Kraken, I'm actually not using the main trigger input on the Kraken, I'm using the rim trigger. I found that for techno specifically, the main trigger was a little bit too snary, frankly. Like you could always, it just kind of rang out no matter what I was doing, and it didn't really fit the kind of sound I was going for. But the rim hit is a little bit more distorted, a little bit weirder, and I thought it fit a little bit better into what I was trying to accomplish. So I was just using the rim hit. It also saves me trying to multi-patch, you know, to get to to have something else do the main hit instead of just the one. Chimera, let's see, I think Chimera was doing the kind of off hat. So with the kick. There you go. And that was just kind of left to its own devices. I didn't really mess with that too much during the performance. And then we got our kind of ride cymbal. Nothing too crazy, but with everything together. You know, you got some fun stuff there. You can do some cool stuff with the live mode. So I have the second pattern on live mode to kind of just slow down the kick a bit. So you can do some builds. The name of the channel. Switch back to it really quickly, which is nice. Anyway, so that's the drum section. Very, very straightforward. Not a whole lot special with the drums, to be frank. Let's see. I want to talk about how I'm using the bitbox, because that's kind of its own thing, which has been pretty convenient. And then I'll talk about the kind of main voices and the effects and stuff like that. So the bitbox, I found this really cool kind of like textural pack. This techno, it's like a found sound techno pack on Splice. And it's got a cool, like, you know, it's obviously very rhythmic, but the way the sounds work is it's all like room sounds. So we play this kind of middle section. You can get a feel of what I'm talking about. Let me just play the kick and snare. And then you got the tops. Finally, you got this bottom section, which I have set up. These kind of like ambient loops that were part of the pack as well, which is pretty nice. It gives some little extra background. I just have 4 of them loaded. I really didn't. There's a couple of them I didn't like, and I probably would change. This one I think is a little weird. This one's okay. And that one's okay too. You get the idea. But the cool thing about that, right, is like, you know, when you're trying to do, let me stop those. What I have learned in my personal experience, and others might differ, but when I was trying to build a full set, you know, there's only so much you can do if you're trying to synthesize everything, and having this kind of small package over here that is doing a lot of additional additional sounds, additional voices, stuff like that, was really helpful, because I was basically able to do various transitions during the performance, where it was pretty much just the crater and the bitbox going. And it, you know, for a whole set, right, it's essentially like doing a song transition without actually having to, like, you know, reset everything, change the patch, you know, come up with a new sound, and pivot very quickly. So that was super helpful. It was also fun to kind of break down at the end. I think, like, you can kind of hear it, but if I start these, and then as I remove them, this weird thing happens. Like it's like it's an illusion, but it feels like time is slowing down. The clock hasn't changed at all. Like it's still going at exactly the same speed, but I think just the way that those samples kind of overlay with each other in the loop, as you started to remove them, it feels like the clock is just winding down, and it was a fun way to kind of end everything, I thought. So that's the Bitbox. Bitbox was basically just doing its own thing. There's no gates. I was just manually poking stuff with a touchscreen. Really great to have the touchscreen. The one thing I found is that the Bitbox 2, the full-size one, sounds better than the Micro. So if you're shopping around, I would spring for the Bitbox 2. I think it sounds better. The Micro has a lot of like screen noise, and the screen flickers a lot and stuff like that. And I have not encountered that yet with the larger one. The larger one seems to be pretty solid. So food for thought. Let's see. Running down the rest of the middle row here, we have a mult, which is doing a lot of work to duplicate out clocks, duplicate out voltage, wow, pitch signals. I can't think of my words today. Yeah, it's duplicating pitch out. Noise plethora is just kind of droning in the background. We'll hear it in a second as it comes up. And that is going to the reverb, which I have gated, which is a lot of fun. And the cool thing there, right, is that gating reverb is very rhythmic. I have a couple different settings in the Maestro to mess with it. But it provides this nice kind of like pumping in the background. And the modulation opening and closing the noise plethora is coming from the Zadar, which is just running on a loop. We'll mute that for now. So that's the noise plethora. That's just, like I said, kind of providing a little bit of background texture there. Works really well for that. Random step, big part of it is doing samples and holds of the pitch that's coming from PAMs and then distributing them to the bass line into the Manus. Those are so let's get into the pitch sequence. So Mylar Melodies has a great video out about the Turing machine. If you guys have not seen that, I would highly recommend it. It's very cool. It talks about how the Turing machine works and all of the fun stuff you can do with the Turing machine for modulation, coming up with pitch sequences, stuff like that. I am using PAMs in a very, very similar fashion. So PAMs, you can set the outputs on PAMs to do looped, random, quantized voltages. So looping means that once you select a loop, even though the voltages are random, it's going to stay within that loop until you tell it to do differently. So if you say, give me a random 8 voltages random loop, it's going to loop those same 8 voltages until you say, okay, refresh and give me a new loop of whatever size. And then it quantizes it, so that way you're getting something that sounds musical. So I have it set to, I have one channel set to do that random looping of random quantized values to a pentatonic minor scale, because it always basically sounds good for the most part. It's hard to mess up. And I have the control of the loop size on the first channel over here of the Lapsus Oz. So the cool thing about that is if I drop the Lapsus Oz to 0, and let me get some pitch going so we can actually hear this. So right now, this is fully random. I have Lapsus Oz all the way down to 0, which is basically telling PAMs, like, we're not looping right now, just give me random stuff repeatedly. And as I raise the Lapsus Oz, we start setting the loop steps and how many steps there are in the loop. So that's like 2. It's like 3. We can go a little bit more. We can go all the way up to, like, I think it goes to 32. But that's a bit, for techno, I think that's a bit too far. So I was kind of staying in, like, this area, just giving it a couple steps. If I don't like it, I kick it down, drop it back to 0, bring it back up again. So, but that's not all, right? So we have, let me mute this for a second. The triggers for there's a bunch of triggers that are happening. There's the actual trigger, which is firing the envelope and the voice on the bass line. That's coming directly from the constellation. But the triggers to do the sampling and holding are coming from the numeric repetitor and then going into mute. So the cool thing is if I flip a switch on mute, we're not going anywhere because there's no trigger re-triggering the random step. If I want to open it back up again, now we're flipping through the sequence again. Hold here. Open it back up, here we go, right? So that's kind of fun. You can do interesting builds and performances, stuff like that, where you're holding the pitch for a while and then releasing it and kind of causing havoc, which is fun. That pitch is being duplicated into the random step a couple times, and the random step has another trigger on it going to another channel, and that is going to the Manus, which sounds like this. So you can hear that that's fundamentally the same pitch sequence. As the bass line, but it's playing very differently. The triggers for the Manus are also coming from the numeric repetitor on their own channel. They also have their own mute, so again, we can do that same thing. They're different, so I can release the Manus. And then release the bass line. So that's really fun, I think. No pitch sequencer, right? You got a combination of modules. Hey, we're doing the modular thing. Isn't that neat? And it was really fun to play with because you could just, no, I don't like that. Slide, get up a new sequence. Again, watch the Mylar Melodies video on the Turing machine because it is very, very similar in concept. It just kind of does a couple things differently. It streamlines it a little bit because we don't need a quantizer, and it gives us a little bit more control on the looping and locking rather than, the other thing we don't add is we don't add new kind of random changes to the sequence. Once the sequence is locked, it is fully locked until we release it completely. But other than that, it's very similar. So that's the kind of pitch sequencing we got going on. On the effect side, we have the Desmodus Versio, which is just doing reverb work. It's that gated reverb we heard earlier. The data bender wasn't using too much. It's a little finicky for what I was trying to do, but I was trying to get some little glitchy stuff, especially when I was doing the breakdown coming from the bitbox. It was fun to kind of send that through the data bender being modulated by Oct, and then send it all over wild different places. The Versio is currently flashed with the Lacrima Versio firmware, which is the auto wah, and that is working hand in hand with the bass lines. The bass line's going into the Lacrima Versio, and that's going into the mixer, and that's giving us all sorts of fun sounds. A lot of fun to be had there. So yeah, that was like this firmware is a lot of fun. I really like it. It sounds really cool, especially in combination with the bass line. I think they go well together. And that was just using Oct to kind of modulate it. Let's see. So that really covers the main bass voice. The performer is here, basically just acting as a master compressor. There's some cool tricks you can do. This might be a little bit to do kind of one-handed, so I'll mute myself for a second. But with the color on the performer, you can do some cool kind of like DJ filter effects. I'll show you that now. And you can do some fun drops, stuff like that. One second. So yeah, it's nothing too fancy. It's very kind of simple, but it does the job. I don't remember which specific color mode. It's green if you want to look it up in the manual, but it does kind of a nice lo-fi, high-passy effect. And then you can kind of drop it back in and do some fun builds that way. So one button, very nice. It's actually not the main button. It's one of this tiny little button down here, but yeah, it's not that bad. Let's see. We talked about the Bitbox. Let's talk about the BIA. So the BIA is this, which sounds pretty aggressive. Let's put some kick to that and open up the filter. We can do the same trick we did with the voicing. Over here. So yeah, just some fun, aggressive percussion noises. I was originally trying to have the BIA act as like an additional voice, melodic voice, but it wasn't really adding that much, and I think the bass line was doing it better. And so it was easier for me to, rather than trying to contrive another way to use a second or like a third melodic voice, instead just use it for additional kind of percussion and stuff like that. And it's pretty fun because, like we saw there, right? You can do a pretty cool breakdown where you have just the BIA going with like a kick and a snare or click and claps, and have a lot of fun with that. Lapsus is very underrated. I do agree. It's also cool because it's like flippable. So like before I had it down at the bottom of the case, I had it inverted. There's switches on the back to change the directions of the faders. It all works pretty nice. There's switches to change polarity. You got all sorts of fun stuff. It's very, very handy, especially when dealing with like modules like Oct. So there, obviously, I'm sure you guys are all familiar. There's a big controversy going around with what the CV standard should be. But Oct does +10, -10 volts, and a lot of modules saturate at +5, -5, or in some cases 0 and +5. So having something like the Lapsus, the performer also does a good job at this as well. I think that's what it's called. Yeah, the WMD one, which is like a 4 HP fader, in order to kind of tame back some of those crazy voltages and bring them back down, so that way they're usable. The noise engineering modules, as much as I love them, that is one of their downsides, is they don't have any sort of attenuation and they saturate at 5. So a little bit of an annoyance there to work with them, but they still sound really cool. So let's see. Zadar. So Zadar is doing a lot of just kind of miscellaneous modulation on things. I have it set up in a couple loops. So channels A and B are the only ones they're using, and they're both modulating different filter cutoffs. So channel A is modulating the filter cutoff of the where's it go? Yeah, the filter cutoff of the 860, which is the Manus. Yeah, thank you. The 10, the 410 is what I was thinking from the WMD module. That's kind of their version of the Lapsus. But yeah, the 860, if we have the Manus going, you can see it kind of ride the curve here. So that was nice to just kind of have a little additional hand movement going on the filter. So this is after the Manus. The Manus itself, I do think, needs a filter after it to kind of tame it. It's very harsh without the filter. So if we just hear it like wide open. This is actually not too bad at the moment, but... it can be pretty harsh. Versus if you have a filter. Just kind of kills a little bit of that extra high buzz that can kind of hurt your ears a little bit. So that's one channel of the Manus. The other channel we already kind of talked about is doing the cutoff on the noise plethora. And it's just kind of doing back and forth. The expander for the Zadar, I do like it, if only because of the buttons. Being able to manually trigger. So for example, one of my favorite uses for Zadar, because of it's got weird funky shapes to it, is setting the runtime of the envelope to be very long, like 30 seconds plus, and then using the buttons to trigger those when you want it to fire, rather than having to have some other external gate fire the Zadar. Obviously you can do looping like I have here if you want to, but it's really handy to just kind of hit a button and have it go. I haven't used the additional CVNs too much, but the buttons I think are worth it. The only downside of the expander is that it's a 3 HP thing instead of a 2 HP or 4 HP. So it means I have this one extra dead 1 HP over here that's not getting covered, which is a little bit annoying, but whatever. Also, pro tip, I've had the Zadar for 2 years now, 3 years, 2 years. How long have we been in a pandemic? You can hold the menu button and have it do a quick save. I did not know this for the longest time, and one of my biggest pet peeves about the Zadar is that it does not save settings over power up. But being able to do a quick save is so much better than having to dig into the menu and save to a specific slot. It will just save to whatever slot is currently loaded, as far as I can tell. So I know that, and now you know that. You're welcome. You have learned a knowledge from today. Cool. So we'll continue on down the line. We have baseline, the Javelin, which is not doing anything, mostly just a spot filler at the moment. There's a couple modules in here that are currently not utilized. The Javelin is one of them. But it is, could be useful. It does like a whole bunch of enveloping and fun stuff like that, but not really used at the moment. Numeric repeller, like we talked about, that is currently doing the triggers on the random step to capture samples and holds. And we got the mutes controlling those triggers to prevent them from going out if we don't want them to. And then finally, the one silver module combo breaker, the IntelliGel Audio I/O, which is just doing balanced audio out to the mix. So that's the patch. That's about it. Oh, I guess to talk about, we have a little bit, what the things are modulating. We have the catalyst is going to the Manus, the noise plethora, and I don't remember. BIA? Oh, that's right. It's choosing different sequences on the numeric repeller. Yeah. Let's see. Any other special sauce on this patch? I don't think so. I don't think so. Yeah, I think that's kind of it. So, if you got questions or stuff in the chat, I'm going to start ripping out the patch cables because that is half the fun. Turn the case off for this while we do it. Boom. The nice thing about these patch cables is they are very satisfying to both patch and remove. This current grid, their current setup is up on my modular grid. I'll put it in the description of this video, and also put it in the description of the live video as well. So if you guys want to see the setup in there as well, it is there for your perusing. The one thing I did run into was a little bit of power issues with this case in particular. Because of the way the bus boards are powered, the bottom two bus boards are on one power supply versus the top row, and they were just the negative 12 volts was oversaturating the meanwhile power supply that I have in here powering it. So I had to kind of reconfigure some of the modules where their power was going on the backside to make sure that they were, you know, balancing a little bit more across the second power supply. But other than that, no real power issues. And no, after that fixed it. It was stable after that. But I did have one kind of case brownout while I was making sure everything was working. So that's why we test. Cool. Well, the other part of this stream was to thank you guys all for being my first 400 subscribers. So if you guys are watching this now or tuning in later, thank you very much for that. I appreciate it. It's been fun kind of growing this channel, doing modular and other stuff as I go. And 400 is a pretty sweet number. That's more than 0. So 400 people out there watching my stuff. That's pretty crazy. So yeah, so thank you for that. Stay tuned for more. More modular, more electron stuff. And that's really going to be it. I'm going to kind of rein back a bit. If it's not modular and if it's not electron, it's kind of going to go by the wayside and not be a focus. So if you like modular and you like electron, that's where we'll be. It's very satisfying to unpatch cables, I will say. Just kind of rip everything out. Get the nice clean. Oh. So here's an existential question. Which camp do you lie on? Do you lie on the noise engineering patch points to be too tight, or the expert sleepers patch points to be too loose? And which do you have the stronger opinion about? Because I know that's a topic for much debate. Because the noise engineering ones are very tight. And I think I would rather have the expert sleeper one be loose than the noise engineering ones be tight, because it kind of like pulls the whole module when you're trying to pull stuff out. But anyway, how's everybody doing? Did everybody have a good weekend? Did anybody go see any shows, watch any cool stuff over the weekend while I start to put patch cables back on the cable rack? We can actually switch. Oh, there we go. This is all the entertaining content you guys came to see. Putting patch cables away. Oh yeah. Dropping them on the floor. It's a little bit hard to do this while holding a microphone, so I'm going to put the mic down. we're probably going to call it there because I don't think you guys really care to watch me stand here for 20 minutes putting patch cables away. So yeah, thank you guys all for tuning in. And thank you guys for being my first 400 subscribers. If you are a subscriber. If you are not, smash that like and subscribe button. Let me know what you think of this thrilling content of unpatching a modular case and talking about it. If you want to see more, if you got questions, drop them in the comments. Happy to answer. Like I said, I'll put a link to this case in the show notes so you guys can see all the modules and all that in there as well. And yeah, that's probably going to be it for today. So once again, thank you very much for tuning in. See you guys next time. Boom, boom, boom. Bye.